Political Party Funding Act comes into effect on the 1st of April. That means political parties will now have to be more open about their donations and, of course, contributions from around the world and here at home. Slindelo Masikane is following this story for us. She joins us now live. So, Sli, before we get into how the IEC is going to make sure that these political parties actually disclose the money they get, let's first talk about the Act and what it says.
Well, Shahan, essentially this act is supposed to promote transparency, and it's also to ensure that voters know exactly who's funding their parties. Now, we know last week President Cyril Ramaphosa made the announcement that the act would finally come into effect on the 1st of April. And this is essentially when all the financial years begin for many private companies as well. And we understand, of course, that we are in a year where we are going into local government elections. And this is essentially will be the first elections that this act will take into full effect. And what we know about this act is that there was a huge consultation process that took place ahead of the act coming into fruition. It's finally been gazetted, and finally we have political parties on board. But what is still outstanding in terms of this act is how it's going to affect independent candidates. That matter is still in the Constitutional Court. But what we do know is that political parties that are registered here in South Africa will have to declare yearly to the Electoral Commission that will be running this particular project as to the monetary donations that they get, but those donations have to be from the amount of 100,000 going upwards. Let's just take a listen to what the Vice Chair had to say.
The imminent implementation of the Political Party Funding Act signals one of the most important and significant enhancements to our electoral democracy since 1994. It will change the electoral and political landscape, opening the world of private and public funding of political parties to examination, to scrutiny and to analysis. By providing online access to information on the funding of political parties, stakeholders such as voters, the media, civil society and the public in general will be better equipped to participate actively and effectively in the democratic discourse and in the democratic process. And we believe that this will enhance the freeness, the fairness and in particular the credibility of our elections.
It's going to be a very difficult task to actually monitor political parties to make sure they disclose this information. We all know politicians lie. So who will be in charge of running this major task?
Well, the Electoral Commission has set up a unit that has been headed now by Mr. George Mahlangu. We had an opportunity to speak to him with regards to what some of the loopholes actually could be in terms of implementing this act. I mean, it is obviously a step towards openness and transparency and ensuring that, political parties are not getting donations from, examples, foreign governments, agencies or persons or organs of state, because this particular act prohibits those kinds of monetary donations. But also one of the loopholes that the head of this unit said to me was that they will find it difficult, of course, to monitor those cash donations that are made. But of course, that is up to political parties. They are meant to ensure that they are hiring auditors and submitting those statements to the Electoral Commission. Let's take a listen.
You can donate in smaller tranches, be it in kind or in monetary form, but as long as it hasn't reached the minimal threshold of 100,000, it is not disclosable. It is not supposed to be disclosed to the Commission, but the accounting officer of the political party must keep records of all the income that they would have received from any donor, be it in kind or in monetary form.
Sli, of course, we know that the EFF was calling for the local government elections this year to be postponed. What's the IEC saying about how it'll be dealt during the pandemic?
Well, as far as we understand, the Electoral Commission has already begun preparations, in fact, 24 months in advance for any election that is upcoming. And as far as they are saying is that it's all systems go, Shahan, at this stage. What they are hoping, of course, is that the vaccine rollout would have been quite far in terms of when we are expecting these local government elections to take place, which is sometime between August and November. But in case that doesn't happen, they are saying that all COVID-19 protocols will be observed. They will be in place. They've been in consultations with political parties in terms of actually, we know that in elections there'll be party representatives inside the voting stations, and so they've agreed with political parties, for example, that there'll only be one political party member inside the voting stations to ensure that they are, not crowded within those voting stations. And of course, sanitizing measures that will be put in place. And of course, voters will be expected to bring their own pens. But I did actually ask the Electoral Commission exactly how far we are in terms of actually starting to vote electronically and going online in terms of this process. And they're saying that those consultations are still ongoing, that the Parliamentary Committee believes that those discussions still need to take place. In fact, the IEC was saying that they wanted to start, some kind of, some tests in terms of testing this process within these local government elections, but they were stopped by the Parliamentary Committee, saying that they still need to just flesh out a lot of the issues that comes with electoral voting. But let's take a listen to Mr. Simon Mambula with regards to how COVID-19 protocols will be observed.
In terms of managing the pandemic, by non-pharmaceutical interventions. Indeed, we have a protocol that we've agreed with political parties, and some of the key features are the following. Social distancing within the queues. Of course, the impact of that would be that the queues will look longer than ordinary. So it's not a factor of inefficiency. It's a necessary measure to keep social distancing within the queues. Sanitizing upon entry and exit at the voting station. Ensuring that everybody brings a mask or a face cloth. Bringing a pen along so that there is no exchange of pens and the possibility of cross-infection from the exchange of pens. Reducing the number of party agents within voting stations. Ordinarily, each party or candidate are entitled to two party agents. But we've agreed with political parties that to depopulate the concentration of people in the voting station, let's work on one per party for purposes of this election. Hopefully, there'll be sufficient vaccinations by the time the elections are held, and hopefully we would have reached herd immunity. But we are working on the basis that an election is happening in line with the constitutional timeframes.